yeah, thank you everyone for sticking around and your stamina. We were initially thinking to have a break, but I think given the time constraints, we thought just plough on, and then we can hopefully have time at the end for more talking and hopefully finish up the food. We've got a lot of that left over. But thank you all so much for staying. I'll introduce myself very quickly. I'm Josh Cooper. I work with Jawad at Salam for Democracy and Human Rights, and with Yahya at Al-Qis. So there's no way I was missing this event. And so this session is slightly different. The title is Summary, Wrap-Up and Recommendations. So it's intended just to kind of follow up with anything that we think has been missed throughout the conference, some burning questions and points that you wish to raise, particularly as it's been quite constrained for time. And also given the title of the conference is An Inspired Future, this particular session is really there to have a forward-looking agenda in terms of follow-up actions we can do ourselves to realise this vision of an inspired future for the Gulf. So without further ado, I'll introduce the speakers. So we'll hear from Jawad, who's the chairman of Salam for Democracy and Human Rights, who will give some remarks and some recommendations, and we'll hear from Safa al-Faifi, who is a volunteer at Al-Qis and plays a crucial role with Al-Qis in a voluntary capacity, as well as her extensive activity as a community activist and a network organiser in Cardiff and in Wales. And she's been very busy in recent weeks as a result of the election. So it's great for her to join from Wales. And she'll be giving a summary of the events of today with the help of Mamina, who's been writing up notes over the course of the day. So without further ado, I'll pass on who would like to go first. Okay, so
thank you so much, Josh. He's a colleague of mine now from Al-Qis. So I'm Sahar Al-Faifi, a civil rights activist, but also I'm an anti-Islamophobia campaigner. So I do my volunteering for Al-Qis whenever I have time. This conference, the aims of this conference is actually to get different perspective on the political situation, as well as human rights, as well as the media. In this conference, I hope that it's unique. It's the first of its kind because it gathered all the GCC activists in human rights together under one roof. A lot of them discussed the different tensions that each of the GCC's Gulf country experience, because this is one of the things that we got from this conference, is that we must not paint all the GCC countries with the same brush. The experience of the civil rights or the human rights activism in Bahrain is different from Saudi and so on. Also, it was covered the different type of tensions, the internal and the external tensions, and the role of the Western countries in intensifying these tensions, and what can we do as a grassroots activists and human rights defenders. Our conversation must not be an elitist conversation. It is our duty to disseminate this information in a simple, accessible language to people on the ground there in the GCC countries to make the change. So that was the outline of the entire conference. But then we had three main themes. Number one, politics. Number two, human rights. And number three is media. Now, with the political aspects, is that we should take from this conference that we want to agitate other activists and other defenders to be vocal about the situation in their countries, at the same time appreciating the sensitivities associated with that. And this is something that the human rights defenders spoke about, that they might be passionate about a certain cause or a certain activist, but that might have a serious consequences on that activist if it was highlighted or the case was highlighted. And then finally is the media aspects. Now, it's interesting to know that the media experiences in Kuwait, for example, is far different from Bahrain or Saudi, for example, because they have much more marginal freedom than Saudi and so on, and they have relatively separation of the different types of powers there in comparison to Saudi, and the idea is whether this can be capitalized on and whether such experiences can be replicated in other GCC countries. So that was just an overall summary about all what happened today. Well, not all of it, but a short summary of it, and I really hope that you all benefited from it, but also it's the beginning of something big, that we are showing a united front of GCC activists and human rights defenders who are passionate and who are absolutely agreeing on the right to speak, the right to move, the right to assemble. These are the three main elements for any civil society that sadly we don't have at the moment in the GCC countries. So that's an overall summary, and over to you, Mr. Jawad.
Thank you very much. From my side, let me say that we have dreamed, but not a theoretical dream. We have a practical dream. And I think more we dream, more we should have ambitious to let this dream to become in practice. Our dream is to live as human like the rest of the world are living it. We have to determine our destination, and we should have our rights. We are not less than any other nations who are electing their governments. We are not less than any nation that they are electing their full-power parliamentarian. We are not less than any nation that they decide the policy of the government and so on. So in this regard, we need definitely to be engaged with the elites like you, with the NGOs like you, with the other activists, journalists and politicians and academics and academic institutions and all this. We like to join international community to try to let our dream to become a little bit faster on the implementation. We have a goal and we have a mission. And this mission is not something that we cannot achieve. It is an achievable mission. What is our mission and what is our goal? Our goal to have a civil and democratic states. And we believe that stability and security in the region, not part of each individual country, in the region, as everyone knows, 35% of international energy coming from that area. We believe that that security and that stability will not be maintained through selling arms, will not be maintained to building marines or other military headquarters and so on. Just it will maintain if the international issue, if the internal issue is stable, if the internal issue is related to the democratic process, if there is a peaceful transition of power. So these goals, we think that achievable, and more we believe in it, more we can practice it. Now, yes, we are coming from different backgrounds, sectarian-wise, religious-wise, country-wise, and so on. But this is everywhere. So if you take example in UK, you get different people or different categories of the communities, but at the end there is a policy that the government will be elected. This is the way that the GCC citizens like to see their futures. Now, we know that there are so many challenges, and as our colleague Anwar just elaborated on it, we don't want to be so dreaming in a way that's not considering the practical aspect of it. For that reason, we have a project to achieve. It is not just an event. When we thought and we got together, we said that we want to deliver the following messages to everyone, to international community, to our citizens, that first of all, we as NGO, we as human rights defenders, we as elites, we have vision. And our vision should be learned loudly. We are so much away from what we've been framed on by the governments. How we've been framed on? They say that they are a bunch of the sectarian groups, or they are a bunch of groups who are dominated by some regional power or international power, or they are so much hardliners, or they are fanatics, or they are believing in force and violence. But it is totally wrong, and this is our duty to indicate this. What is our message and what is our vision? Our vision totally opposing what they want to frame us. And this is our duty. For that reason, we say that we have to continue in such events. And it is beginning, not the end. What we end today is beginning from some other bigger project, as our colleague Anwar mentioned that. We want to continue this path to indicate that we are followers of a society which demanding a change toward political reform, toward human rights, and definitely with that one, we need an independent media resources or media bodies to do that one. And definitely all that one, if we cannot achieve it, we cannot have any sustainable development vision. I said so many times, why these visions which been adopted by the local governments? Mohammed bin Salman have vision, Isa bin Hamad in Bahrain have vision, they call it 2030 visions. But it is so fake and unpractical. Why? Because it is not based on true political reforms, it is not based on the human rights, and it is not having the achievement toward sustainable developments. We think that if we want to get to the right stability and to the right sustainable development, that it is started in the right way. Without political reforms, without continuous political reforms, without basis on human rights in all this process, and without having it, definitely we will not get neither security, neither we will get sustainable development. The secondly, we as a part of that part of the world, or as citizens or NGOs, we can work together. Regardless of our sectarian backgrounds, regardless of our whatever we are part of in that part of the world, we can work together. Why? Because we have common vision. And this is our vision, to have civil state, to govern our country, to participate on the policy, to have equal vote, to have true representative in any parliamentarian system, to elect our government, name it what you want. Maybe the proposal of constitutional monarchy, as Anwar mentioned in his presentation, is going to be something is logical to the idea, but maybe some people think it is far away, let us start something. But at least we should reach that level, if not today, definitely later on. Then let me mention that we think that whatever achievement is being done by the modern country or by the West, they gone through different struggles, and they done through different confrontation among themselves, among the neighboring country, and so on. It's not right for us to start what they started. We should start what they ended up. So no one should try to convince us that our condition is different. Try to be the way you are, and it will take you ages to reach what they're reaching in. It is not right. And a good example, the African country and Far East countries. They shifted toward further stability through democratization, through the state of law, and through the civil states. Why the GCC governments want to impose on us absolute monarchies? Why someone like Ahmed, anyone, as a citizen, shouldn't be a minister or a prime minister? Why should all the key positions within the government, for example, Bahrain, prime minister, all the consultant prime minister, or deputy of prime ministers, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Internal Affairs, even sometimes who is in charge of the sport, all of them part of the ruling country. What makes him to have, what makes the ruling family to have such power on an entire? It is not just political power, it is a world power and so on. So I think what we are dreaming is not theoretical, it is practical. I want once again to thank all those who are really engaged with us to have such wonderful and successful event today. All the speakers and all our partners and all our organizers that they participate with us. But once again, if you be with us in this long run way, that's we're going to appreciate you once again, that please be with us whenever we want to organize similar events and so on. Let me mention here, today we want to hear from you in this session some suggestion or comments. Then we will note it down. Then later on, organizers will try to review the final statements. Then we will release it maybe within a few coming days. Today, we are not in a position to release a final statement, but definitely we will do that one. But rest of the time, I will leave to the chairman to organize and to hear from you what suggestions you have. We'll note it down. Then later on, we'll try to get together by ourselves and our partners in this event to make a final statements within a few coming days. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fouad and Sahar, for your insightful and important remarks emphasising why we're here, why we set up this event, the importance of bringing together diverse voices from across the region, which is not always easy, and the importance of people, communities in the diaspora and other citizens utilising their basic rights, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, which is in stark contrast to some of the governments in the region and their approach. And of course, the importance of forward-looking action, as Anwar's presentation you said, the importance not of empty words and tangible steps we can take, and the fact that we will be publishing in the upcoming weeks a statement and a summary of this event with follow-up steps and recommendations that can be taken on an individual or institutional, on different levels. So in light of that, I think I would like to hear from you, everyone who is still here, and to think of, in light of this, in terms of how we can aspire to this this future that we are looking for in this event. Are there any follow-up points building on discussions today, or anything earlier similar to that?
Thank you for this opportunity. The Gulf region is one of the worst regions to be a woman, and women rights in countries such as Saudi Arabia are just like appalling, and we're still discussing women driving, which should be a joke in the 21st century. So I think it would be interesting to have more focus on women, the role of women in civil societies, in media, and building free, open societies in the Gulf, and so to make sure that they are part of the conversation, because as we know, there can't be development or democracy without women, and making sure that they are not forgotten.
I was actually just going to make, can you hear me? I was just going to make a comment on that particular thing. If you look at the involvement, for example, of the Al-Khawaja sisters, Zainab Al-Khawaja and Mariam Al-Khawaja, the spark of revolutionary, the banner that is held by them, that, you know, their father's in prison, they have been so inspirational for other women that I think that the women are involved in the Gulf region and in Saudi Arabia and everywhere. The women are involved, but we just can't see them. So it's really the visibility of the women, perhaps a little bit more, not necessarily that they're excluded, or that they don't have the capacity, or that they're not already engaged. It's only that they're not visible. And that, I think, comes more from a cultural point of view than anything else, because I personally don't believe that women are excluded from the political discourse or the human rights discourse whatsoever. For me, I could be considered a feminist. I think that in essence, women's rights are human rights, and so I will try to build a capacity for everybody, but I think that women in the Gulf region and that geopolitical area, they actually are already engaged in it, maybe just making them more visible, but not necessarily pushing them out there in front, because culturally, I don't think that it's going to, it's something that would be aspirational, but not necessarily realistic.
Can I speak also?
In light of Tara's point, actually,
It's just, I went to this seminar like earlier this week where Motherwea Rashid spoke, and this other woman who was called Lynn something, and she's like an academic who's working with this artist, this Saudi artist called Miss Safa, who does these like cool murals, and she has these t-shirts to say, I am my own guardian. And someone raised a really good point that blew my mind that I'd like to share. It's not that it blew my mind, it's that I think it's really like sidelined. It's the fact that when we talk about women's rights in the Gulf or in the like Middle East more broadly, we always talk about like emancipatory discourses. So we always talk about agency. We always focus on these middle-class women who are, I don't know, looking to drive and whatever. And what we don't focus on is other sort of feminist discourses, like women who I don't know, are poorer and they want the money. This was the example that was given. They want the money to buy a car so that they can drive. And I just think it's interesting to keep in mind that there are other ways of being feminist and other ways of sort of fighting for your rights that don't necessarily fit in with this discourse. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a very important point, particularly for people sometimes in the West who might use some of these issues but without kind of cultural sensitivity or the right kind of looking about issues like class. So pass on to Jury and Creative Me.
Thanks, everyone. We have very few women in the room. I thought that was a bit of a challenge from the get-go. But my takeaway, my kind of main takeaway from today, and the thing which I think I've learned from what you've all said and those also who have left, is that, okay, well, so we started with politics, and from Mark and others, that it's difficult. It's a difficult environment in which to work. And then we talked about human rights. And okay, we all know it's a difficult environment in which to work. And then finally Bill in Haifa, again, difficult place to work. But it's not monolithic. And I think Jawad's comments at the end exemplified that it's not a monolithic, it's not as if there's no ways in. But my takeaway, in a way, getting from the session that I was involved in, getting away from that kind of monolith of bilateral or multilateral interventions versus or in conjunction with the UN, in the face of it not being a monolith, is that I think we need to build networks. And these kind of things, little bits of networks with the NGOs, with think tanks with bits of media. It's not going to be easy, it's not going to be straightforward, but I just think what we're trying to do is trying to say, my wasta is bigger than your wasta. And I think there's kind of a way in for that in these discourses. I don't know where or how, on what basis, but there does seem to be some glimmer of hope.
Oh, yeah. I absolutely agree with you. Like, I am all honesty as much as I'm one of those feminists, and I do truly believe that women should play a vital role in everything, politics, human rights, and media. But you and I both know well how the Western media like to focus on certain cases and not others. And the stories that we hear about is either women who are running away from their families, or women who left their religion, and they have every right to do so. I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but the West, they have this Orientalist lenses to which they look through these cases from. And it feeds into the Islamophobia industry where the women are oppressed, and the white men are going to save them. You know, the white nations are going to save those women. And we've seen that in the case of, for example, Rahat al-Qunun. She's absolutely have every right to be protected from her family and to ensure that she's not facing any domestic violence. But we have seen how some Canadian human rights capitalized on her case to further division, but also demonization of Muslims and so on. There are some, what you call it, conservative Muslim Saudi women who have sacrificed a lot. They just don't have the links with those celebrities as much as Rujain al-Hadroul and others. So while we see these cases there in the media, and we should support Rujain al-Hadroul and others, we also have to know that there are people like Nof Abdelaziz, who we don't know much about her, but she sacrifices a lot and she's still in prison. So yeah, I agree with you, Life, that we should be appreciating how the West likes to focus on certain cases and not others.
Back to the core of the issue is that we want really support to promote our vision toward, as Anwar once again mentioned, that win-win. Our vision is related to the one cases, and there won't be any losers. We are not coming here to build, say, coming empire to demolish some others' empire. We are coming here to build up a vision that it is joint in empire. Our vision is that anyone is gaining from the region can gain more if they supported this vision. Believe me, whoever think that they want the area just for the energy, our vision is supporting that. Why? Because we want to be part of the international community. Whoever is thinking that we should be away from sectarian, we are within, and we are planning, and our vision is supporting that, to be away from sectarian. Whoever is thinking that we should have a long run strategy to have a better infrastructure for the country and for the welfare of the individual, of the citizens. This is our vision that we are talking about. Anyone is believing in sustainable stability and continuation of that one, our vision is talking about that one. Anyone is believing on the human rights, our vision is talking about. Then what is the differences? Why they should be a little bit afraid of those quote-unquote human defenders or opposition or hardline journalists and so on. Believe me, we're gonna be a better alternative from the current regime. Doesn't mean that this is entire to be rolled out, but we should read it in different versions. And whoever is saying that, yes, there's a reform in the country, they are lying at everyone, because how can I believe there is any type of the reform if almost all the oppositions are either they are behind the bar or even they are totally banned from any elections, away from partnership to be part of the government. You know, for example, Bahrain, Sheikh Ali Salman is behind the bar. The rest of the opposition figures, the opposition leaders, all of them, either they are in Israel or behind the bar. At the same time, many of their nationalities have been revoked. And almost all opposition societies, they are banned. Even if you are being member of these opposition parties 10 years back, a decade, then resign, you will be banned from any incoming elections. Then someone will tell me that Bahrain is going in the right direction and slow motion of the reform. So we say that this is a fake reform. It is a very, very damaging the name of the reform. Please help us to let our message to be more realistically to be delivered to the international community. And once again, we can gain it, not lose it. We can have win-win equation. Now there is win and lose, but our vision is to work one another.
Thank you again, Jawad and Sahar. And yeah, I think some themes that emerge from this discussion are the sort of intersectionality of some of these issues, feminism, class, and the importance of networking, as Jury said, and the really importance of meetings like this, not just to discuss these issues, but to really practice them. So I think, unless, are there any more burning questions?
Yeah, what I really are curious presenting to us is that the regimes seem to...
I think my voice is loud enough. It really is apparent that the regime's method of maintaining stability is to freeze everything and to try to keep it isolated and contained, whereas the vision that you have that is shared amongst all of us, I believe, is one for progress, where everybody can participate in productive, positive change in a way that everyone will benefit from it. And there's an urgency to doing that so that things don't continue to descend into the potential chaos that we're seeing on the horizon. And really, I have thoroughly enjoyed the summary of the day, but I do think that my takeaway from it is that there is this overwhelming desire to push towards a collective progress together, and that's what I'm seeing.
Thank you for this event. I inspired because all the opposition from the GCC countries, they are here. And really, I'm really glad that all of us in here. From this event, that I think if you made a small committee that they gather together from all these organizations, sat together and have a strategy to have this strategy about when to win. Yeah, if you don't have a plan for future, it is not enough to sit for this event and that's it. We have to have a plan for farsighted, for a long, at least 5 years, 10 years, not only for this event. This event is glad. It's really fantastic. Oh, we are all gathered. We listen to all of you. But what is the next step? We need next step, not only this step. Thank you.
That's a very important point. I think we probably won't finalise it tonight, but hopefully this will be at the forefront in the upcoming weeks. And so, any more questions?
Yeah, so one of the things I wanted to reflect on is the conversation we sort of had about cybersecurity laws. And I think we need to be careful not to drift towards more of a simplistic approach of completely disbanding the value of cybersecurity laws in the region and sort of globally. I think there's certainly a value for cybersecurity laws in terms of maintaining national security, in terms of maintaining communal cohesion, while the laws that seem to be being drafted in the region are definitely encroaching on individual rights. One proposal I think that should be made, or an alternative model that should be made that still hasn't been figured out in liberal democracies alike, is what are exactly the mechanisms that would ideally exist within these laws that would maintain individual rights and also serve their purpose, preserving national security and communal cohesion. And so one thing I would propose is drafting this alternative model that I don't think there's a proper benchmark for elsewhere.
Yeah, that's one of the
last word.
Positive
Thank you.
message rallying cry. Yeah, I know, it's come all the way from Kuwait.
Thank you. No, actually, this lady, she said what I want to say. Zainab, really, I once said like this: we don't have to stop only this conference. We have to continue it. We have to put plan. We have to send our message to all the world. We won't live as a human. Actually, in the GCC country, all the people in GCC country, we cannot live as a human. We don't have right. We don't have right to say what we want to say it. We want to have a right, even if I want to go to Bahrain, I cannot go to Bahrain. Bahrain, Emirat, we cannot travel between our countries because we are only activists in GCC country. I'm very happy about this conference. I hope the next conference we have to see what we are to achieve it for the next year. I hope that. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. And on that very apt last point, and spoken very good English, I must say. I think, yeah, it's a good time to wrap up. Thank everyone, the speakers, the video panelists, all the audience, and everyone involved online.